Hello everyone, it is the end of March, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's March. It's been a long month. Anyways, I'm coming to you guys today with my March wrap up, and I gotta admit it was not a very good reading month. I didn't enjoy I shouldn't say that. I didn't love the majority of the books I read, but I enjoyed some of them, and others I just couldn't wait until they were done. But I didn't dislike them enough to DNF them. I'm trying not to DNF books unless they are just a slog to get through, like The Queen of the Tyrling was, or if I just find something about it very triggering, which happily hasn't happened so far this year. So I've read 6. I've read 6 books this month, which is not really good since with my goal of reading 100 books, I need to read about 8 a month. And I have a lot of big books that I'm going to be reading in April. Oh, boy are they big. Anyways, let's jump right into it. The first book I read was Rook by Sharon Cameron. This is a adult dystopian novel that follows a girl named Sophia who is also not as well known as the Red Rook, and she goes into the city, the dilapidated city of Paris, to break people out of prison for crimes. Sometimes, it doesn't really tell us whether any of them actually deserve to be in this prison or not. More often than not, we hear about the people who are just imprisoned for no good reason. So I don't know if she actually breaks anyone out that should be in this prison. But I found this very interesting. Usually when you read a dystopian book, it's set in a futuristic time with futuristic aspects in some shape or form. But in this one, it's a dystopian set into the actually not the far off future. I think the time this is set is actually 2024, if I'm not mistaken. So not that far off. So this could actually still happen. Kind of, yeah. Anyways, futuristic. It was futuristic, especially when this was written, but the people live as if it's like the late 1700s to 1800s, when they had like powdered wigs and big ball gowns and everything like that. And that's kind of the time when it takes place, but they still have futuristic stuff like DSs and CDs and stuff like that that are just like buried in the ground that they can excavate, even though they're technically not legally allowed to keep these items. And I don't know, it's very interesting, and I love how strategic Sophia was in like this cat and mouse chase that was going on throughout pretty much the entirety of the book. It was very interesting, even though I felt like some moments it was like the people that she was going against, I felt like they had absolutely no reason, unless someone was like leaking them intel a lot more than they let on in this book. I don't think they should have even suspected that it was her or someone from her family. But like I said, we know some of the information that was getting leaked and kind of a time frame in that, but it also feels like in some cases there was more going on before the book started that we just weren't privy to. So it was a decent book. I gave it a solid 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Aristotle and Dante Discovers the Universe by Benjamin. I'm not even going to attempt the rest of his name. This book follows Aristotle and Dante as they technically spend 2 summers together. Going on that, I didn't really like the fact that we got like a big summer experience, then we got a few chapters from their school, like Aristotle going to school, and then it introduces these 2 female best friends of his that really didn't add anything to the story other than letting us know that, hey, he does have normal friends. He's not completely lonely. And then it goes on to the next summer. I did find it interesting how some of these were like broken up in 12 chapters. It'd be like, go to 12 chapters and then start back on chapter 1 and then go from there. And it was like cut up in the important moments of Aristotle's life, which I found very interesting. The relationship was fine. I liked how that worked. It was fine. I didn't care that it didn't go much into like the fluffy romance of it. I also didn't really care but didn't hate the way the story was told, and like it was very, very dialogue heavy, and usually I don't like that, but I was able to form the world in my mind very easily with what little descriptions we were given. So I guess my main like pet peeve with this book was the fact that I didn't like the fact that it was cut up to like as one summer, bits and pieces of the school year, and then the next summer. I would much have preferred to read this book and have just the one experience. And I guess they put the year gap there to let us know that, hey, Dante still loves Aristotle even after they've been away from each other for so long, and vice versa, even though they're oblivious, or at least one of them's oblivious. So I guess that was the whole point of it, giving them time away from each other, just to bring them back together, and the relationship is just as strong. If that's what it was going for, it did a very good job. But I still only gave this 2.5 stars because, honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that it was written very dialogue heavy and it was very incredibly fast paced, I would have finished it, but I wouldn't have been happy about finishing it. So the fact that I finished it just so quickly, just, you know, it gave me that little extra push to say, hey, I didn't love this book. I probably will never reread this book, but it's still a solid read. And the next 2 books I read were The Wrath and the Dawn and The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. I was so glad I had the audiobooks for these because, oh my gosh, I just needed to finish these. Nothing happened in the first book, it felt like. I will say this, these are fast-paced books, and the audiobook, I had to listen to it at ×3 speed because the narrator was just talking so slowly. I could not bear to listen to that at the normal speed, or even ×2 speed. ×3 speed, it felt like I was talking to a normal person, but that could be because I talk really fast as well. So, anyways, it felt like truthfully nothing happened. I felt like it felt like the stuff that happened in book 2, it could have been extended outward, like it should have started in book 1, and book 1 could have left on a cliffhanger, it would have been fine. Which book 1, you could call it a cliffhanger, but I wouldn't, just because of the fact that I knew there was a book 2 and there was gonna have, this was gonna have to work out. But I feel like there was a lot of moments in book 1 that didn't need to be there, or there was stuff from book 2 that could have been woven into book 1 and just made everything, it could have developed things more and better. Like I don't know how to explain this because it makes sense in my mind, but it doesn't make sense when it's coming out of my mouth. But from a writing perspective, and I am in no way near a professional writer, I just do it for fun. If I had been writing, not these books, but a story similar to this, the magic system would have been much better fleshed out, and from the main character's perspective, because the main character in this story has magic. And I didn't even tell you guys what this book is about, but it's about what is it called, 1001 Arabian Nights or whatever, where the main character has to tell her husband a story every night so that she doesn't die like so many have before her. Very interesting concept. It includes a magic system, which I felt like wasn't flushed out near enough for me to even classify it as having magic in it. The most magic we get is from 2 of the characters, one who I absolutely adore and we didn't get enough of. I'm not going to attempt to say anybody's names because I'm not going to. You'll understand if you read these books. The names, I do not want to butcher any of them. So besides those 2 characters, we don't see really any magic being used besides the main character making a carpet fly. And that kind of gave me, Aladdin vibes, and maybe that's what it was going for. It had genies as well if you squint, but I wanted more from the magic system. And that's why these books, the first book got 2 stars and the second book got 2.5 stars. It just wasn't flushed out the way that I felt it could have been in, 2 thick books. Although I will give this duology props for the pacing. The pacing was incredibly, incredibly fast paced. I just got through them so quickly. I think I read the second book in like 2 days. So very fast-paced, and I am very appreciative of that. Speaking of fast-paced books, I read Proxy and Guardian by Alex London. This is a dystopian series that follows these two boys, Knox and Sid. Sid is a proxy and Knox is a patron, and Sid has basically spent his life being tortured because of the stupid shit that Knox does. One day, Knox takes things a little too far, and I want to spoil something so bad, but I'm not going to. Because I just want to talk about it. But Knox does something really bad and gets Sid in a whole lot of trouble. And this basically follows Sid and Knox as they try to save Sid from this situation. And given the system that they live in, where it's all digital and everything, it's very easy to track Sid. It's also very hard to find a place that they can protect Sid or take him to where he will be protected, because as most dystopian novels are, there are very few habitable locations. And if I talk anymore, I'm going to spoil things, so I'm going to shut up about that for a second. I read Guardian, which it was not as good as Proxy. I feel like Proxy could have been left as a standalone and just been perfect. Guardian felt like it was there just for those of us who wanted the LGBTQ relationship to go in as very little spoilery detail as possible. It felt like the relationship was very one-sided on Liam's side, and it felt like Sid was starting to see him as a human being. That's the best I can put it as, because it felt like through the majority of the book he didn't even see him as a human, and then it's like towards the end he started seeing him as a human, and an attractive human at that. And I know we get like a 28-page novella that is supposed to be the finale and everything. After the plot twist that we got in Proxy, I don't trust endings. I will simply leave it here. I may read the novella sometime down the road because I am morbidly interested in it, but I don't trust this author not to rip my heart out, to be honest. By the way, the plot twist in this, I will say, this series as a whole, I could pretty much guess everything that was going to happen, all the circumstances, all of the little intricate details that was woven throughout everything. I picked up on all of it. It felt like they were there for you to pick up on them. Like, they weren't hidden at all. So, the twist at the end of this was unexpected, unwanted, but I appreciate it because it's not something you see very often in any YA book series, let alone a dystopian. And I feel like dystopians would have the easiest time of doing it. I'm just gonna say it. That's kind of why I wanted this to be standalone, is because I liked where things were going in this throughout the entirety of it. I could have finished this easily in one sitting. I drug it out for like over a week of just reading bits by bits by bits because I didn't want the book to end. Guardian I finished in like two and a half days, something like that, just because this had what I was looking for in an LGBTQ book and a dystopian and just an all-around good, fun book, even though there weren't many fun bits. And this had more of we got to wrap this up, but we can't do it in a very short amount of time. We need to drag it out. Which I get why it's drug out from a character, like for the characters, but I felt like it needed more action. It needed more action. It needed a bit more explanation on the science side of things, or at least it didn't really need it, but I would have appreciated it more, and I would have appreciated what the characters were going through more if I had gotten to see more of the science behind everything. Because I guessed what was going to happen in this book when I was like about, I would say, 100 pages into this book, which isn't bad. But once I got 40 pages into this book, I was like, oh, this is where this is going and this is how it's going to turn out. And I was right on all of it. So I would like a little bit more spontaneity. I would like not to be able to guess all the plot twists about 40 pages into a book. Even though it didn't take my enjoyment out of Proxy or Guardian, when I was able to do that, it still felt like this is not something that would fly very well today. But Alex London did such a good job in the writing that I didn't care. I was okay with all of it. So I couldn't recommend this book series enough. I gave Proxy a 4. I didn't give it that 5. It's more like a 4.5. I didn't give it the 5 just because I could basically guess the entire plot of this one really early on and the plot of the second book before I even started it. Guardian got a 3 stars, and I kind of wanted to give it a lower rating because I really didn't enjoy it, especially when I compared it to Proxy, but it was still solid. It still did what it needed to be done, and even though there were certain points of this book where the timing just felt too perfect and it felt like the bad characters had more information than they should have been privy to for one reason or another, I can't really spoil that. It was especially towards the end that this became a problem. Even though I had problems like that, like things were too convenient, timing was too perfect, and the adults were just stupid. That basically sums up my problems with this book. Besides Mary, I hated Mary in both of these books. She was such a hypocrite. But other than that, these books were great. I highly recommend them, especially Proxy. If you just want to read Proxy and leave it as a standalone, you 100% can. It works as a standalone just fine. But yeah, these are all the books that I read in March. And I'm disappointed in myself that I did not read a lot more. And I probably could have read a lot more if I hadn't taken my sweet time reading Proxy. But I loved Proxy. It was such a good book. And it's definitely a book that I actually think I'm going to buy the alternate cover for that book, because that one is way too shiny. I was having such a hard time filming with it because it just wouldn't stop glaring off my lights, the sun, everything. Yeah. And I, of course, made pages for it. I don't know if I showed you guys my pages for last month or not. If you guys want to see them, I usually post them on Instagram. But March was, it was a very lackluster month. I just went bare minimum. I didn't even share these on posts on Instagram. I just did a reel. But there's Proxy and Guardian. I had a lot to say about both of these books. I really love them. And they have some good quotes on here that it's like, nature cannot be reprogrammed forever. Humans are not meant to run like software. You cannot hack the human condition. Not that they didn't try. But yeah, I'm very excited about that. And a little teaser, here's what I have for April so far. I've already finished a book for April, and I'm currently on the second one, which is, it's going to take a long time to read that one just because it's such tiny print. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about in today's video. I will see you guys next month. Hopefully. No promises. Bye!